Assalamu alaikum, my dear student. This is Miss Aisha Anwar from Biotic Academy. Today we are going to discuss about the type of blood vessels, how they are working, and what is the difference between them, how they are adaptable to perform their specific function. There are three types of blood vessels in the body of humans. The first one is artery, the second one is vein, and the third one is capillary. Arteries are linked with the transport of oxygenated blood throughout the body except pulmonary artery, which is transporting the deoxygenated blood from the heart towards the lungs. Now veins are concerned with the transportation of deoxygenated blood throughout the body, and except the pulmonary vein, which is bringing back the oxygenated blood from the lungs towards the heart. And capillaries are basically a connector between the arteries and the veins, and they are carrying the mixed type of blood. Now if we talk about the structure of artery, we can see that it is a thick muscular structure, a tube which is having a thick outer wall, and then after a thick outer wall, the second layer of muscle and elastic fibers are also very thick, and due to this thickness of the muscles, the lumen of the artery is getting small. Now this small lumen is basically very important in transporting the blood with high pressure throughout the body, and this thickness basically helps the artery to retain the pressure, to tolerate or withstand the pressure of the flowing blood. If the thickness is less, then the artery may get burst with the pressure of the blood flowing through them. So this has to be very thick. These muscles has to be very thick to make them capable to withstand the pressure of the fast flowing blood through them. And because of the thickness, the lumen is low, and this low lumen of the tube basically help them to flow the blood with high pressure. Now the second one is vein. As you can see, before going towards the vein, first we will also discuss this point over here in case of the artery, that the blood which is basically flowing in the artery is being pumped by the heart. Heart is present at the end of the artery, which is basically sending the blood in the artery with high pressure. As in my previous video, I told you that the left ventricle of the heart basically push the blood out of the heart with high pressure, and that high pressure needs to be withstand with the arteries. So the arteries needs to be very thick walls so that they can tolerate that high pressure. So the heart is present at the end of the artery, and the blood is coming with high speed and pressure along with them. But in case of the vein, there is no heart present at another end, so the flow of blood is very low in them. So that is the reason that they don't need to have a very thick muscular layer outside. You can see a thin layer of muscle and elastic fibers over here. They are very thin as compared to the artery, and as a result of this thin layer of muscle, the internal lumen is getting very broad. It's a very large lumen. So how do the blood basically flow in these veins if there is no pumping organ at the another end of the vein? The blood basically flow through the vein by the force of body skeletal muscles. Body skeletal muscle basically push the blood in the veins against the gravity towards the heart. There is no pumping organ at the another end of the vein, and these veins also contain valves in them. These valves basically make sure that the blood will not flow back. It will make sure that the blood will have one flow, and that flow is towards the heart. So basically the veins are having thin muscles and broad lumen, and the force of the body skeletal muscle makes sure that the blood keep flowing towards the heart from foot till heart. Now the third one is capillary, which I told you that it's a connector between the artery and the vein, and it is having mixed type of blood. These are very thin blood vessels, and they are made up of single cell layer. Single layer of cells, they are made up of very thin, a very small lumen they have. The lumen is just enough that the red blood cell can pass through them. They are just enough for them to pass through them, and these capillaries are basically connecting with the cells. Basically, they are in connection with the cell for the transport of the material, as these arteries are very thick wall and they are broad, so they can't reach to each and every cell. They basically divide themselves into small branches which are called arterioles, and then arteriole further branch them to form the capillary, which is basically taking the blood, nutrients, oxygen, glucose toward the cell. And then again these capillaries will join together to form venules, and then these venules will join to form the vein. So this is how the transport system works in our body of the humans. Now what happens if these arteries get blocked? If they are already, you can see they have very narrow lumen. What happens if they get blocked, or they have some fats deposited in their path? What happened? What could be the possibility on health? Here we can see a problem of CAD. What is CAD? Basically, it's a coronary heart disease, CHD, coronary heart disease. And in CHD, basically the coronary artery get affected by the cholesterol, by the fats, which are basically depositing in the coronary artery. Heart is basically a pumping organ which used to pump the blood throughout the body, but it itself require blood, it itself require oxygen, nutrients, oxygen to keep working, to get nutrient. So for that purpose, the heart is basically having, you can see over here, the external surface of the heart is basically having the blood vessels over them, and they are called coronary artery, right coronary artery and left coronary artery, which are supplying nutrients to the heart, so that it keep on working, it keep on pumping the blood throughout the body. What happens if these arteries, coronary artery, get blocked, or they have some barrier, some problem in the transport of the blood? That basically leads to the angina attack or the heart attack. What happens? The blood which is basically keep flowing in this normal artery, it start getting blocked. The flow of the blood get disturbed because of the deposition of these fatty plaque. Basically, these plaques are basically the cholesterol, the fats which start depositing on the internal lining of these arteries, which make the lumen further narrow, further difficult for the blood to pass through them, as a result of which less blood can pass through them, or heart needs to put exertion pressure for the flow of blood through them. So this is how this leads to the problem of CHD, coronary heart disease, which can be very fatal for the health of a person. Now, if we talk about the transport of material through these blood vessels, and we talk about the transport of nutrient and oxygen through these blood vessels to each and every cell of the body, how these nutrients get transported to the cells. The blood vessels are basically bringing the nutrient oxygen towards the cells, but how they are absorbing inside the cell, how they are entering inside the cell. Here you can see that the small artery is basically near the tissues. It basically branch themselves in the arterioles, and then these arterioles will further branch themselves into the small capillaries, so that they can go in the narrow passages of the tissues. Now the cells and the blood vessels, they are near to each other, but there should be a medium in between both of them, so that the material, the nutrients, the oxygen can come out of the blood vessels and can reach into the cell. There should be a medium in between, and that medium is basically the tissue fluid. What is tissue fluid? Tissue fluid is basically the leaky plasma of the blood. Basically, the plasma of the blood leaks at the point of arterioles, where the pressure of the blood is quite high. So due to the high pressure of the blood in arterioles, the plasma of the blood starts leaking around these tissues, and this tissue plasma, after leaking from the arteriole, it is considered as the tissue fluid, because it gets accumulated around the tissues and provide a medium for the exchange of the material. But similarly, there is another system working over here, which is called lymphatic system, which is keep on collecting the tissue fluid around the tissues and taking them back towards the heart and get them mixed again with the blood so that the consistency of the blood can remain maintained. Okay, now this is the tissue fluid, which is basically providing a medium for the exchange of material from the blood vessels. And similarly, the blood, when it get rid of its excretory product like excess water, carbon dioxide or excess ions, when it cell want to get rid of them, cell basically diffuse them out of them into the tissue fluid, and then from the tissue fluid these material get enter into the blood vessels, and then through the venules they will enter into the small veins and reaches towards the respective excretory organ. So these tissue fluid basically help the exchange of material from the blood vessels and the tissues in between blood vessels and the tissue. These tissue fluid are basically the leaky plasma of the blood, which helps to provide a medium for the exchange of the material. I hope you understood today's topic. This is Miss Aisha Anwar from Biotic Academy. Take care.